You wake up exhausted even after 8 hours of sleep. You lie there staring at the ceiling, wondering, why do I feel like I haven't rested at all? Before your feet even touch the ground, your phone buzzes. Notifications, headlines, reminders. Your nervous system is already sprinting, and the day hasn't even begun. But here's what no one told you. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're overstimulated. Your brain is running a marathon every single day without ever reaching the finish line. And the worst part? You've blamed yourself for it. For the fog, the forgetfulness, the endless yawns, the quiet guilt whispering, you should be doing more. This is not laziness. This is mental fatigue. This is burnout, disguised as a normal Tuesday morning. You don't have a lack of willpower. You have an invisible weight pressing against every decision you make. An emotional exhaustion that builds up from hundreds of micro-stressors, from always being on, from never letting your mind actually shut off. We live in a world where your dopamine system is hijacked before breakfast, where cognitive overload is just called productivity, where feeling like a collapse is brushed off as just tired. But deep down, you know it's more than that. It's not that your body is weak, it's that your mind has been in overdrive for too long. This video is not just going to explain why you're always tired. It's going to name what you've been feeling. It's going to validate your experience. And it's going to reframe your story, from someone who's constantly drained to someone who finally understands why. Because the truth is, you're not defective. Your system is screaming for help, and you've been trying to push through it with empty motivation. Today, that ends. Today, we start peeling back the layers of exhaustion, one by one, until we see it for what it really is, and more importantly, until you start to take your energy back. Let's begin. You wake up, and you're already tired. Not tired like you stayed up too late. Tired like your brain never truly shut down. Like it spent the night running simulations of everything you fear, everything you haven't finished, everything you still have to face. This is mental fatigue, and it starts before your first thought. Because the burnout didn't begin with your job. It began with your nervous system, caught in a loop of overstimulation you didn't even sign up for. Before coffee, before a shower, before you even open the curtains, you've already made dozens of micro decisions. Should I check my emails? Should I respond to that text now? Is today the deadline? What if I'm behind again? Each question pulls a thread, and soon your brain feels like a tangled mess of noise, stress, and invisible obligations. We call it waking up, but the truth is, your mind never slept. Modern life has trained your brain to be in constant alert mode, and it's not your fault. It's how we've wired our mornings. Alarms, blue light, social feeds, notifications, anxiety-inducing headlines. That's not a routine. That's an onslaught. You're not lazy. You're under siege. See, true rest isn't just about hours in bed. It's about the quality of your mental shutdown. And most of us are trying to rest, while our brain is still sprinting through to-do lists, regrets, and half-finished conversations. Think of it like trying to sleep with headphones blasting static. You might technically sleep, but your mind? It never finds silence, never finds stillness. And that's what makes waking up feel like a crash instead of a reboot. It's why you stare at your phone first thing in the morning, not out of habit, but out of numb desperation, trying to anchor yourself with something, anything. But instead of grounding you, it drains you even further. By the time you're brushing your teeth, you've already spent a full tank of cognitive energy, and so begins the cycle. You push through the day wondering why simple things feel so heavy, why you can't focus, why you feel behind, why nothing feels clear. But what if the real problem isn't your energy? What if it's the invisible burnout you carry on every morning? Before you even begin, let that sink in. Because once you see it, you can finally start changing it. There's a moment, usually in the middle of the day, when it hits you. You've done nothing overly difficult. You slept decently. You even drank water and ate something close to healthy. But still, you're tired. Not need a nap tired. Tired like your brain is wading through syrup, like no amount of effort feels worth it. And worse, you can't explain why. That's when the guilt creeps in. You start thinking, maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough. Maybe something's wrong with me. Here's the truth. Something is wrong, but not with you. It's with your neurochemistry. More specifically, your dopamine system. Every time you scroll through social media, binge short-form content, switch between tabs, check notifications, or juggle conversations, your brain fires bursts of dopamine. Tiny sparks of pleasure, tiny jolts of engagement, until they're not so tiny anymore. The problem? Dopamine doesn't just give you motivation. It regulates your emotional energy, your reward system, your attention span, and when you bombard it constantly, it starts to crash. This is what's called a dopamine crash, a silent neurochemical collapse, and it doesn't look dramatic. It looks like staring at your screen for 20 minutes, unable to start that email. It looks like skipping laundry again. It looks like emotionally checking out in the middle of a conversation and pretending you're still there. The worst part isn't the tiredness. It's the shame, because no one ever told you this is real, that this can happen. So you turn inward. You blame your character. You say things like, "What's wrong with me?" And that blame adds weight. Guilt becomes fatigue, and fatigue makes you seek escape, which leads you back to, you guessed it, more stimulation, more scrolling, more background noise, more avoidance disguised as distraction, and round you go, like a casino, flashing lights, constant noise, no sense of time. You keep chasing a win, clarity, energy, motivation, and you leave feeling emptier than when you started. You're not tired for no reason. You're tired because your brain is trying to function in a world that treats overstimulation like a lifestyle. And your guilt? That's the side effect of not knowing the system is rigged. But now you do. Now you can begin to step out of the cycle and reclaim the energy that was never truly gone, just buried. Let's make something clear. You don't have a shortage of energy. You have mental leaks, and they're draining you all day, every day. You've probably told yourself things like, "If I just get more sleep, I'll feel better." Or, "Maybe if I had more motivation." But what if the issue isn't about adding more? What if it's about stopping the constant leaking of the energy you already have? Here's what most people never realize. Mental energy doesn't disappear in one big burst. It trickles out quietly, through dozens of tiny cracks in your day. It slips away when you compare yourself to a stranger on Instagram before you even get out of bed. When you replay a conversation from 3 days ago on a loop. When you rehearse what you're going to say in a meeting that lasts 5 minutes, for 3 hours. When you pick up your phone to relax and somehow feel more tense after. These aren't obvious energy drains. They're invisible, which makes them even more dangerous, because you never see them coming. You think you're resting when you scroll, but your brain is still processing, still decoding, still juggling images, comparisons, notifications, and unfinished thoughts. That's not rest. That's digital multitasking disguised as downtime. We've been conditioned to believe that doing nothing is the same as resting. But real rest, restorative rest, is intentional. It requires disconnection. It requires silence. It requires choosing space over noise. Here's what the cycle looks like. Leak, overload, apathy, guilt. Repeat. Every unprocessed thought, every unnecessary input, every background tab in your mind, they all take a toll. And eventually your energy doesn't just dip, it dissolves. Think of your brain like a bucket. You keep trying to pour more energy in, coffee, motivation, hacks, but the bucket is leaking. And not just from the bottom, it's riddled with holes, some you can't even see yet. No wonder you feel empty by noon. No wonder focus feels like a fight. No wonder you feel behind even when you've been busy all day. You don't need more energy. You need to seal the leaks. That starts with awareness, with noticing, with saying no to one more notification, with creating boundaries not just for your time, but for your attention. Because where your attention goes, your energy flows. And it's time you started keeping it where it matters. Some people get physically burned out. Others get mentally overwhelmed. But you feel emotionally exhausted. And no one ever taught you what that really means. You're not just tired from doing too much. You're tired from feeling everything all the time. You notice people's tone shifts. You absorb their moods. You overthink your words. You carry the weight of unsaid things, unread texts, unresolved tension. You replay moments that no one else even remembers. You hold on to pain that isn't even yours. This is not weakness. This is what happens when your emotional sensitivity goes unacknowledged for too long. And when it's constantly activated, with no place to land, it turns into burnout. Not the kind that gets a doctor's note, the kind that builds silently, in the background of your day, until existing itself feels heavy. You wake up with a full body of emotions, and you go to sleep with a mind that won't shut up. It's not your job that's draining you. It's the unprocessed emotion from everything you carry, silently. Modern culture loves to talk about productivity burnout, But no one talks about emotional burnout, the kind that comes from being the one who always listens, always supports, always holds it together. You're the strong one. And being the strong one is exhausting, because strength in this case doesn't mean power. It means suppression. It means saying I'm fine when you're not. It means carrying everyone's weight without ever setting down your own. It means smiling through emotional fog because falling apart isn't an option. But here's the truth. Your nervous system is not designed to process constant empathy, constant alertness, constant emotional load without relief. Chronic emotional activation spikes your cortisol levels, the stress hormone. Over time, it blunts your ability to feel joy. It dulls your motivation. It shrinks your focus. You become numb, not because you don't care, but because caring too much for too long without rest leads to emotional shutdown. And the world doesn't see it, because emotional burnout wears a mask. It looks like silence, like detachment, like zoning out in the middle of dinner with your friends. But inside, you're screaming for relief. You're not too emotional. You've just been running an emotional marathon without water. You don't need to toughen up. You need to be seen, understood, and allowed to feel, without it costing you everything. Have you ever tried to rest and felt more anxious doing nothing than doing too much? You sit on the couch. No notifications, no noise, no deadlines, and yet your chest feels tight. Your thoughts race. The quiet feels louder than a crowd. This isn't random. This is overstimulation fatigue, a nervous system that's forgotten how to relax. See, we weren't built for this level of constant input. Our ancestors had moments of stress followed by silence, moments of activity followed by recovery. But today there is no off. From the second we wake up to the second we pass out, we're swimming in digital noise, visual overload, and emotional multitasking. You check your phone while brushing your teeth. You watch a show while checking your emails. You scroll TikTok while waiting for a text. You call it rest, but your brain never actually lands. It's like being in a room with every light turned on, every screen playing something different, and every sound layered on top of the other. There's never real silence, just the illusion of peace, so when you finally stop, your brain doesn't know what to do. It panics. It searches for stimulation, like a drug it's been fed every hour. That's why you can feel more drained after a weekend of relaxing than after a week of work. You didn't rest, you just changed inputs, and now your nervous system is frayed. Studies show that chronic overstimulation reduces heart rate variability, a key marker of stress and emotional resilience. This means your body loses flexibility, your mind loses stillness, and your emotions become volatile or numb. That's why the silence feels loud, because your body doesn't trust peace anymore. It thinks nothing happening means something's wrong. It's why you check your phone in the middle of the night, not for a reason, but out of a trained response to fear the pause. But real rest doesn't happen by accident. It requires intentional downregulation. Not just turning off your phone, but training your brain to tolerate slowness again. Start with 5 minutes, no screen, no task, no purpose. Just breathe. Yes, it'll feel uncomfortable at first, like withdrawal, because it is. But over time, you'll remember what your body knew before the noise. That silence isn't scary. It's sacred. And in that stillness, your mind doesn't collapse. It resets. You've been told your whole life to keep going, to tough it out, to be resilient, to not let tiredness win. But what if I told you that's the very thing making it worse? Our culture worships productivity. We praise the people who keep showing up no matter how broken they feel. We call it strength. But what we're really rewarding is suppression. You're tired, deeply, profoundly tired. But instead of listening to that signal, you silence it. You reach for coffee. You fake energy. You smile through it. You say, I'm fine, when you're falling apart inside. This is the strength trap. You've confused pushing through with healing. But pushing through mental exhaustion doesn't make you stronger. It makes you numb. It turns your internal warning signs into background noise until you can't hear them at all. And when the collapse finally comes, it feels like it came out of nowhere. But it didn't. It came from 1,000 ignored whispers. It came from weeks, months, even years of pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. You've been running on a nervous system locked in fight or flight mode. That's not discipline, that's survival. And no one can survive like that forever. Think about the days when you're high functioning, but completely dead inside. When you complete tasks like a machine, but your soul feels detached. You're present physically, but emotionally, you're somewhere else. This isn't resilience. It's dissociation. And here's the dangerous part. The world will keep applauding you for it. They'll say, "Look how productive you are. Look how dedicated you've been." Meanwhile, your inner world is collapsing, quietly, invisibly, painfully. Real strength isn't about pushing through exhaustion. It's about recognizing when to pause, when to breathe, when to admit, "I'm not okay." Because ignoring your exhaustion doesn't make it disappear. It accumulates. It spreads like a silent illness across your mental landscape, until even rest feels unreachable. Picture an athlete running a race with a fractured bone. They might finish, but what's the cost? You don't get a medal for destroying yourself. You get trauma, burnout, and emotional distance from your own life. It's time to let go of that toxic definition of strength. You are not weak for needing rest. You are wise for honoring it. And maybe, just maybe, the real power is in learning to slow down before you break down. You've been told that rest is a reward, that you need to earn it, that unless you've done enough, you don't deserve to stop. But that belief is destroying you. Rest is not a luxury. It's not an afterthought. It's not something you squeeze into the leftover space of your day. Rest is survival. Emotional, mental, and neurological survival. Your brain is not a machine. It doesn't just run endlessly if you push hard enough. It breaks. It fries. It burns out. And when it does, you don't get a warning. You just stop feeling like yourself. That's the price we pay for neglecting restoration. Not just tiredness, but disconnection. From our purpose, from our joy, from ourselves. You keep asking, why don't I feel like me anymore? Because you haven't created space for you to exist, outside of tasks, screens, expectations, and pressure. Let's redefine what recharging looks like. It's not lying on the couch doom scrolling. It's not zoning out to Netflix while checking your email. That's not decompression. That's dissociation. True restoration is intentional. It's a conscious reset. It's saying, for the next 10 minutes, I am not a producer, performer, or achiever. I am just here, with myself. Science backs this up. Restorative practices, like breathwork, mindfulness, nature exposure, and even low-stimulation silence, actively reset the parasympathetic nervous system. They calm your heart rate. They reduce cortisol. They rebuild emotional regulation. They literally rewire your brain to function better. This isn't fluff. It's neuroscience. And yet, we ignore it. Because somewhere along the way we made rest synonymous with weakness. But think about it. Would you keep driving your car on empty and expect it to perform at its best? Would you leave your phone at 5% battery and still try to film a video, take a call, scroll for hours? No. You'd charge it. So why don't you give yourself the same care? You are not lazy for needing rest. You are human for needing rhythm. You cannot create clarity from a fogged mind. You cannot lead your life while emotionally dehydrated. Start small. 5 minutes. Close your eyes. Breathe. Stretch. Put your phone face down. Feel your body again. Because this isn't indulgence. It's not wasting time. It's saving your mind. And the more you protect your energy, the more fully you'll show up in the moments that truly matter. There comes a moment, maybe it's today, maybe it's right now, when you realize you can't keep living like this. Waking up tired, dragging yourself through the day, living in a constant fog, hoping clarity will somehow just arrive, pretending that pushing through is the same as progressing. But deep down, you're not really living, you're surviving, and that survival mode, it's silent. You smile, you check the boxes, you say, "I'm fine." But your mind is collapsing behind the curtain. This is the turning point. The moment where exhaustion becomes your teacher, not your enemy. The moment where burnout isn't just a warning sign, it's a wake-up call. You don't need more hustle. You need more honesty. Honesty with yourself, about how drained you really feel, about how much you've ignored your own needs to meet everyone else's, about how often you've collapsed in private just to appear composed in public. But here's the truth. Awareness is power. And power, real lasting power, so comes from conscious recovery. Not crash and burn recovery. Not last-minute getaways or weekends of sleep after months of grinding. But daily repair. Consistent space. Radical permission to feel, to pause, to breathe. This is how you build a life you don't need to constantly recover from. You start by noticing the patterns, the invisible habits that drain you, the moments you reach for your phone instead of reaching for peace, the ways you say yes when your body is begging for no. Then you rewrite the script. You make recovery part of your rhythm. You protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. You create rituals that reset your nervous system, not just distract it. And slowly, you begin to return to yourself. You start waking up with a little more clarity. Tasks feel lighter. Your emotions become less overwhelming. You stop living in crisis mode. And when the tiredness returns, because it will, you won't fear it. You'll listen to it. You'll let it guide you back to center, instead of dragging you into shame. Because you're not here to burn out for anyone. You're here to come alive. For you. This is the shift. From unconscious collapse to conscious care. From surviving every day to finally, deeply living it. And it starts the moment you decide, I'm done being tired all the time. If you've made it this far, pause and take a breath. Not just because this video gave you answers, but because maybe for the first time in a long time you feel seen. This exhaustion you've been carrying, it's not weakness, it's not failure. It's your body's way of telling the truth your mind has been too tired to say. You were never lazy. You were never broken. You were running a marathon in a world built like a maze, filled with noise, stimulation, pressure, and guilt. But here's the part no one talks about. You can change this. Not overnight, not with hacks, but with presence, with attention, with quiet, radical decisions that say, I matter enough to stop before I collapse. You won't find your energy by forcing more out of yourself. You'll find it by listening to what your exhaustion is asking for. Silence, boundaries, stillness, recovery, and most of all, permission. Permission to say no. Permission to disconnect. Permission to feel tired without apologizing for it. Permission to create a life that doesn't chew you up just to keep you productive. Right now, you stand at a choice. You can scroll to the next video and forget everything you felt in the last 10 minutes. Or, you can stay with this feeling. Let it settle. Let it stir something. Because this isn't just about being tired. It's about reclaiming your mental clarity, your emotional freedom, your right to exist without burnout being your default mode. So here's what you do next. If this video helped you put words to a feeling you've been silently carrying, don't keep it to yourself. Someone you know needs this too. Share it. Subscribe to Leaked Mind. And keep showing up here, where depth is welcome and silence is sacred. This isn't a channel for shortcuts. It's a space for truth, for healing, for the inner work most people never talk about. And if no one's told you this lately, you're allowed to rest. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to build a life that feels light again. This isn't your breakdown. It's your reset. Welcome back.